How do we make things truly fair for the most amount of people? Hey everyone, my name's Tristan Verstappen, and I have a lot to say about many things. I want to talk about equality and equity. A couple of years ago, there was this image going around online where on one side you had an example of equality, and on the other you had an example of equity. Now, both images had the same scenario, in where you had three people who were all watching a baseball game from behind a fence. On the side of equality, you had a tall person, a medium-sized person, we'll say, and a short person. Now, on the equality side, you had each of them given a box to stand on so that they could see over the fence. Well, the tallest person, of course, didn't really need the box in the first place. They could already see over the fence well enough, so this extra box just helped them maybe see a little bit over, but I'd argue might even kind of hinder their view a little bit, because they kind of had to bend down a little bit then to see afterwards. The person in the middle instead got a box, and they could just barely see over the fence. But the shortest person, who couldn't see over the fence to save their life in the first place, still couldn't see over the fence at all. Now, in the other image, we have an example of equity, where each of them are given a box except the tallest person. Remember, the tallest person doesn't really need a box. They can see perfectly fine without it. But the person in the middle is given two boxes, and the person on the right, who is the shortest, is given three boxes. With this, all of them can see at an equal level above the fence, and they can all enjoy the game. This is an example of equality and equity. When this image first took off in 2019, it really made the rounds, and you had people from all sorts of the political spectrum discussing what it meant and everything. It really sparked a lot of good conversation. But unfortunately, it's one that has kind of died down since, and I feel kind of needs to be reopened, so to speak. You see, there were a decent amount of people that kind of railed against this mentality of equity, and these are the same kind of people that are typically against social welfare programs, which are used to provide a net benefit to not only the people benefiting from them directly, but the broader society as a whole because of it. And the reality is, generally speaking, you probably already believe in the concept of equity over equality, and in fact, equity being the thing that we should really strive for rather than just equality. You see examples of it everywhere. I am doing it right now. I'm wearing contacts. If you wear contacts, if you wear glasses, if you do anything like that, that is an example of a benefit provided to you through equity. It's an example of equity versus equality. Another example of this is any time that you're going up, say, the stairs to a restaurant, and you see a ramp that is provided for people in wheelchairs to roll up so they don't have to walk up the stairs, that is an example of equity. Examples of equity are all around us. And while equality is good and beneficial, it doesn't really strive toward resolving issues. It just kind of continues to leave everybody on, well, not an equal playing field, but equal opportunity. And equal opportunity is fine. But what we should really be striving for is equal outcomes. If we did apply equality over equity in systems like, say, not having a ramp, or even not having wheelchairs in the first place, not having ways to accommodate people who are physically challenged or mentally challenged. You know, when I was going to school, we had the ESE program. We had these programs for kids with different learning difficulties, and they could go to special classes that were kind of designed for them, and they could learn in a way that helped them. But the point is, we see equity all around us. And the reality is, there are always going to be people railing against the concept alone of equity. There are many other examples, though, in which equity does show to be better than equality. A very touchy issue for a lot of people is when it comes to, say, for example, the right to have an abortion. And I will definitely have videos on this topic in particular at some point in the future, but I personally am very pro-choice. And as being pro-choice, I believe that applies to all parties involved when the conception of it's not really a child yet, so a fetus is concerned. I believe very much that the people who are impregnated should have full capability to say whether or not they want to carry the fetus to term and let it become a child, all that good stuff. But I also fully believe that the person who caused the impregnation absolutely should have the ability, no matter what, to walk away and not have any kind of social, financial, or any other kind of burden placed on them for not taking responsibility for a child that maybe they didn't even want in the first place. How is this an example of equity rather than equality? Well, equality simply says, hey, both parties have the ability to say what they do and don't want to happen here. But at the end of the day, the one who, of course, is carrying the developing fetus inside of them does and should have the ultimate say what happens with their body and with that fetus. But at the same time, there's nothing kind of put in place to say for the person that can cause the impregnation, hey, if you didn't want this to occur, you don't have a right to say whether or not they carry it to term or not. But you do have the right to say you don't want to be responsible, even financially. Because, and again, this is a topic I'll delve into more specifically at some point, but a lot of people will fall back on and say, well, you don't have to be responsible, you don't have to take care of the child, but then child support comes into play. Now, again, something I will definitely discuss in the future more specifically, but my ultimate stance on that, for example, an example of equity, is saying that an understanding, while the male and female sexes of each people involved in the creation of a fetus that could ultimately lead to the birth of a child, the one carrying that has ultimate say what happens, but at the same time, the one who doesn't have a say as to what happens with the fetus specifically does have the right to say what happens as far as what affects the rest of their life moving forward. Equality, in this example, is just saying, well, you're both given the same opportunities. You could have just not had sex. You could have fill in the blank. But equity would make it so that both parties, regardless of their starting points, have the same ability to have an outcome that is desirable to them, regardless of the circumstances. These are just some examples of how I believe that we should really be striving for equity over equality. Equality is all well and good, but it only really gets you so far, and it doesn't really make things fair for people. It provides equal opportunity, but doesn't provide equal outcome. I believe people should have the ability to have both, no matter what their starting point is. Especially for factors that are out of their control, like your height, your sex, your race, your ethnicity, any of those things. As always, though, these are just my thoughts. Let me know what yours are in the comments down below. Follow me on social media for more, links in the description. Subscribe and ring the bell to stay up to date. Leave a like if you like, and if not, I hope you find something to do like. Later, guys. Peace and love.